Stock, this HBX truck is capable of speeds of up to 34 miles an hour on 3S, utilizing the stock 2840 3500 kV motor, which you can see is right here. Now the stock ESC is only rated for 35 amps and only has 3.5 millimeter connectors for the motor. These bolt connectors here can only accept up to 3.5 millimeter bullets. So if you want to upgrade this motor to make the car faster, like I am here with this King Val motor, there's a few modifications you're going to need to do. And if you're going to go with a bigger motor like this one here, which is a 2845 motor, so it's the same diameter, 28 millimeters, however, it is 5 millimeters longer. This has 4 millimeter bullets, so I'm going to be running a different ESC. This motor here is probably already about all that this ESC can handle, so I'm going to look to use a 60 amp ESC in place of the stock 35 amp ESC. Now, as you can see here, the new motor is definitely a little longer. However, it should be just short enough that it can still fit in the motor compartment. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to install this motor first. Again, it's a King Val 2845 5900 kV. So this motor is going to be an absolute ripper. It's going to be significantly faster than the stock motor, and it should bring this truck from speeds of around 34 miles an hour well into the 50 mile an hour range, or at least that's what I'm expecting, but we'll see what it does in actuality. So let me go ahead and get started. Alright, so I removed those 7 screws. Let's see if that is enough. Alright, it's been a while since I've done this, so I'm forgetting several screws that actually need to be removed. You're going to need to go ahead and remove these 2 upper control arm screws, the 2 upper shock mount screws, the 2 screws that secure the wing, or what's left of mine, and these 2 screws down here that hold the wheelie bar in place. And hopefully that's it. Let's see. Alright, and you might as well just go ahead and take dog bones out, because they're gonna fall out on their own if not. So here we go. Here's the gearbox, and as you can see, despite running it quite a bit on 3S, the gears appear to be in good condition. But what we're looking to do today is to remove the stock brushless motor. All right, and then you just kind of rock this motor back and forth, and it slides right out. And there's a second screw that needs to be removed to remove the motor mount from the actual motor. I'm going to go ahead and clean this thing up a bit before I reinstall it. As you can see, it says 14T right there, so that's oriented for the 14 tooth pinion gear. Now, I have heard these grub screws can be very hard to remove because they use Loctite or super glue or something from the factory. So if this won't come off, I might have to try to heat it up with a lighter or something, and then see if that helps. Okay, on the other side it actually says 13, so perhaps you can only run a 13 or 14 tooth pinion. Now this gasket here looks to cover the motor holes that are not being utilized. So I'll set that aside, and I'll go ahead and see if I can now remove this pinion. Alright, the stock pinion is stuck. It's a common problem with these. I can't get it off. So what I'm going to do is put the motor on the table here, and I'm going to try to pry it off. using 2 screwdrivers. And there we go. And I should be able to tap this on the new. Oh, it's too loose. Look at that. Great. The shaft on the new motor is slightly smaller diameter, at least where the grub screw fits in. So I still couldn't get this grub screw out even after I heated it. It's just too stripped and I can't get a bite on it. So do yourself a favor and just buy a new pinion gear. It should be 0.6 mod, and I'll put a link in the video description to the one I end up using. This is proving to be more difficult than I thought it would be. The stock motor mount screws are small, and if you'll notice, these two are closer set to the center than these two. The same thing on the new motor. So there's only, you're limited the number of ways you can mount it. And then I had to get some different screws. Luckily I had some laying around. The new motor requires thicker screws than the old one, so I found these, which look like they're going to work. I had to drill out this motor mount slightly so that they would fit through the motor mount, but once they're in here, I think they're going to work. If I can get this lined up here. All right, and now the motor will hopefully fit in here. Very good, it fits. I'm gonna have to remove that ESC, but I was doing that anyway, and the new one should be small enough that it fits in place. I just got some goodies in the mail. Here's the ESC, and I have the programming card for this as well. I think I'm gonna turn the punch down on this when I do run it. But what I also received today from Amine was this Robinson Racing 14 tooth 0.6 mod pinion gear, and it took me a lot of researching trying to figure out if it was indeed the right pinion gear for this car. It's so hard to find good information. Got some good help on a Facebook group, and I am thinking that's it. So I'm gonna go ahead and mount this on the motor now. Again, here's the stock motor, which is green, and then the king valve is 5 millimeters longer. So let's see here. Here's the shaft. We'll put it on there, and we get a little bit of Loctite here. Might have to take that motor mount off to get it in there. Let's see. Now, does it line up with the gears? I'm gonna say that's about perfect. So I'm gonna push this motor in, and it's meshing. I think it's meshing well. Nice. It took a long time to find this, but there we go. All right, now let's see how this ESC fits in here. Now I run one of these in my Ultima Pro XL. It has a Hobbywing 3650, 3600 kilovolt motor in it, and a car that probably weighs twice as much as this HBX car does, or truck rather. So this should have plenty of power handling capability. It was $38 from Amine. I've had great luck with Amine shipping me stuff quickly. It's only $3 for shipping, which makes it a lot of times cheaper than Amazon. So we have the 3 motor wires, the orange, blue, and yellow, and then we have the 2 wires for the battery. So I have some work to do. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back together and then start working on the ESC. Now, one issue I've had with this HBX truck is the dog bones are really tearing up the shaft here for the, what are these called, out drives or whatever, coming out of the differential. It might be hard to see on camera, but both of them are worn. It's the only spot that's worn. It's not worn here on the axles. They look fine, or pretty close to being new. The front ones look good as well. So for whatever reason, these HBX trucks have a lot of wear right here, and I am gonna have to replace this sooner or later. They're like $13 plus shipping. So it's gonna get kind of annoying having to do that on any kind of regular basis. But I'm gonna go ahead and get these tie rods connected and get this thing back together. Well, if I could redo some of this, I would. It's the first time I've tried to do a conversion like this in an HBX truck, but it's all in here. Originally I planned to put the ESC over here, but it was real tight because the motor wires are kind of in the way. So I actually mounted it on top of the servo. Probably not ideal, but as long as you get it right up against this chassis brace here, the body will clear. You need a little bit of room here, and of course it needs to clear the servo as well, which it does. So that's good. And then I put the Dumbo RC receiver right here. Just remember, brown and black go on the right hand side. And then I mounted the on off switch right here. And then I'm going to secure the antenna maybe along here, and the capacitors I put up here. So it's all in here. It all works. I'm gonna turn the punch down now. I don't want it too aggressive. This is a pretty hot setup, and not trying to have this thing do backflips or potentially wear out the drivetrain prematurely. So if I pop a battery in here, we'll be good to go. That thing should be a ripper. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get this cleaned up a little bit and try to get it outside a little later today. Alright, so I just connected the programming cord. I took the wire here that comes out of the ESC and plugged it in the port on the right, black on the left. And as you can see here, there's all the different parameters you can adjust. And I went in and adjusted the low voltage cutoff to option 6, which is 3.4 volts per cell. And I dropped the punch mode all the way down from the default level 7 to level 1. And I reduced the braking, which is number 5, down to 25%. So I just scrolled through, adjusted them as appropriate, and we're good to go. So that should be it. And I have the receiver mounted on Velcro right here. Originally that's where I was going to put the ESC, but it was just a little too tight. I mounted the ESC on top of the servo. I have just enough clearance here. I think I have just enough room here for the battery as well. If I could do this again, I wouldn't have cut these motor wires so short. I was actually going to completely remove them and just solder the motor wires directly to the ESC. But the problem is they used a high temperature solder, and I was having a tough time getting the factory wires unsoldered, and I didn't want to apply too much heat to the ESC by leaving the soldering iron on there for too long. I made it work. I used some 5mm bullets. I know the shrink tube's not the right colors, but if you look here, I have a little bit of blue, yellow, orange, and with blue, yellow, orange, so hopefully those match up. And Well, I can test that right now, actually. Just give it a little bit of throttle. Yep, and that's forward. So, there we go. Get this thing buttoned up and prettied up a little bit, but everything fits, and I think it's going to be a real ripper on 2S and just be ridiculous on 3S. Stay tuned. Now, one small problem. My 2S batteries fit in here with no problem. They can just kind of pop in here, and I can cinch them down. Now, my Rapiri Air 3S battery. This fit perfectly with no modifications when the car was stock. Now it's a little too big. It won't fit in here properly. I can seat it in here well enough to do a speed run, but I can't fit it in here for normal use. I'd really like to have it ratcheted down, and I can't do that. However, my Tattoo battery, the one that I originally had to modify this battery box to fit in here, I cut a little notch right out of here, leaving enough material to keep this battery strap secure. This one still will fit. I can put it right here, and then in that little notch I cut, the wires fit right in there, and then I can cinch down the battery strap. All right, everything's buttoned up and we're good to go. "52 miles an hour. Damn, that King Val motor is no joke. Let me check the motor temperatures here. 52. That's ridiculous. This is a stock pinion, a 14-tooth pinion. All right, the motor is starting to get warm. I can hold my thumb on it for about 6 or 7 seconds, and it's starting to get a little painful. So not shocking. It's about 75 degrees out right now, and I think the fan is going to be a must if I want to run this for any length of time. But for a couple of speed runs, it's great. And 52 miles an hour. That's impressive. King Val is the real deal. I'm going to try some bigger tires next, and we'll see if I can keep it on the road. Damn, man.